It's a massive week for Arsenal Football Club. Yes, I do believe that. Yes, that does sound a bit hyperbolic, and yes, I'm talking about the transfer window. Of course, when it comes to matches, 3 points, that's where so much of my focus is. But between now and Friday, a ball isn't getting kicked in the Premier League or any competition. It's all focused on what Arsenal do in the window. So we're going to run through some updates. We're going to let you know where everyone is, where everything is, every transfer, every potential movement is going into this big week. And then just round off the video by telling you about why I do think this is such a huge week for Arsenal. In the middle of all this, as this is a news update, we haven't done this for a while, I just want to touch on Leandro Trossard, how brilliant he is, because there's some numbers I think you should really see that I think are just going to maybe lift his reputation even further in the fan base. This guy's such a big player for us, and I think as much as wanting to bring in new players that are going to help us, we've got to appreciate the ones we've got too. That's all in this video. Let's start with the big news update, starting with Mikel Arteta's quote. So I touched on this on a live I did about Eddie Nketiah and, the fact that this move to Forest has kind of collapsed. We'll touch on all that in a little bit more detail in a minute because Crystal Palace are involved. But Mikel Arteta has been talking differently in the press in the last 2, 3, 4 days. I mean, it was pre the Villa game, and just after as well. Now, Fabrizio Romano's got his quotes here. He credits Sam Dean, who Arteta said to that on the final days of the summer transfer window. He said, anything can happen, and we have to be ready. A lot of surprises can come. We will be prepared. That's what he said before Aston Villa. After Aston Villa, again via Chris Davidson, Fabrizio Romano quoting him here saying, we are a little bit short. If we can do something, we will do it. We need good availability from everyone or everybody. We don't have 23 outfield players and normally have to be equipped like that. We know he wants a big squad. He said this before. Mikel Arteta, who said this in previous windows, worth saying that when he said this kind of stuff, he's not always got what he's wanted. I think he's talked about being short in defence. When Jurien Timber got injured, we never went and added anything later in the window. It was a case of him just being happy with what we got, or at least the right player wasn't necessarily out there. So what's interesting is that, again, he's speaking like this, and we hadn't really heard this kind of tone and language from Mikel Arteta earlier in the window. So it makes me wonder, is he confident something's going to happen, so he's more confident speaking this way? Or is he trying to put a little bit of pressure above to say, look, we have to do something, we are short? And when you look at Eddie Nketiah potentially leaving, the Gabby Jesus injury, all the stuff we know about, Vieira, Smith Rowe, I completely agree with him. We are short, we need to do something, but it's not just a case of getting numbers in the building. We're looking to add some quality and add something different. So could that guy be Nico Williams? Well, this report on Friday from Miguel Delaney suggested that there is a possibility. He said that Arsenal are weighing up the move for Nico Williams in the last week of the window, but there is an awareness his preference is to stay in Spain. A lot of people are also talking about his wages, his salary being a potential issue for Arsenal or any buying club to overcome. They're around 170 grand a week. I would think Arsenal can certainly improve on that, but can they improve drastically to the numbers he wants? We don't know. Now, David Ornstein has come out and also said that this is looking impossible. I think that is exactly the word he used. That was what the news aggregators were putting together. He's basically saying that just doesn't feel viable. So, okay, who else could we be looking at? Now we're looking at some of the ITKs and what they have to say. I have to say, a lot of these ITKs, shout out to Team News and Ticks, to Hand of Ozil, who've just been spot on with a lot of information. I've got to give credit where it's due. So I'm going to take this kind of stuff seriously. Now, AFC Amden has come out and said that he's claimed that Anthony Gordon is a target for Arsenal, as he retweeted what Newcastle United were posting about the guy. This must have been when they were just before their game away against Bournemouth. He said that he's a target, but it might be too late. It feels too late. I mean, I don't know if he's definitely a target. AFC Amden's been pretty accurate on a lot of things from what I've seen, the little I've seen. But what I would say is that Anthony Gordon is a target. Do I like the link? Not massively. I don't know if Anthony Gordon has played to a level better than what Martinelli gave us 2 years ago. And I think if we're going to add a player who predominantly plays on the left side, then we need to know that they are going to really up their numbers and add their performances on that side. Some people might say that's true of Nico Williams. Okay, but I'd say that Nico Williams, being two-footed, can play on the right a little bit more naturally. And actually, with his kind of build and profile, I think he'd even play in that kind of false nine or sort of, top of the three, in the centre of the three. Nico Williams. Anthony Gordon, does he have that? Maybe. Look, he's a good player and he's changed my mind on him massively in the last year, but I'm just not sure that he's quite what we need. Though, of course, I'd be excited if we signed him because he's a very good player. But add to that, I don't see Newcastle letting him go with, a few days of the window to go. They're already trying to get rid of Almiron. Jacob Murphy's the winger coming in. I think that's an area they certainly wouldn't want to weaken in. Who else could be possible? Well, Simon Adingra was talked about by Team News and Ticks, and all he said was, look, Adingra is a player that Arsenal might look at. He's a player that Arsenal could approach, and that I think there's a general appreciation for him. Well, Con Harrison at Con Marble Halls has come out and said that Arsenal are sounding out the reps of Simon Adingra over the possibility of a move to North London. Player would be keen. Brighton are tough negotiators. We know all this. But this one is warm, though. Keep your eyes peeled, he says. He then says that Arsenal analysts have been studying him for some time, and it's thought that he could provide sufficient cover / fight for place across the wings. And I agree. Out on the right, out on the left, he could probably do a job. Deal could be done for around 25 to 30 million pounds. That feels too low for me. I think it'd be nearer 45, 50 if I'm honest. And then you've got to ask yourself, is that where you want such a big bulk of the funds going? But that might be the going rate. For wingers sometimes, certainly if you're negotiating with Brighton. He then says that Arsenal still have other options and are almost certain to bring and cover this window. Now, Con Harrison, retweeted by ZRAFC, makes me think that, okay, there's maybe something in it. How reliable? I don't know. I'm just bringing you exactly where the information came from so you can all see it. But Adingra has been mentioned now by two people. Interesting that he didn't start the game against Man United. Came on, obviously, with a really good assist for João Pedro, which got Brighton the winner late in the game. He showed his quality there. He showed his quality last season too. Played a lot under De Zerbi. But Brighton have added a lot of forwards. Ruta came in as well, who can play out on the right, and they've got so many players. Matoma's currently starting on the left, Minter's come in. There's so many players that can play either side on the wings that it just makes me think that there's surely an outgoing in that area, and Simon Adingra might well be the guy.
Right, now let's talk about Eddie Nketiah. Yes, I am in a different place. Well, it's still the same living room, but a different part of it. Why? Because I'm interrupting to tell you about Eddie Nketiah and the fact that he is going to Crystal Palace. Well, 99%. So here's what we know. David Ornstein saying that 25 plus £5 million from Crystal Palace is looking like it's going to be accepted by Arsenal, and as far as we know, there should be no issues on the personal terms front. So Crystal Palace might well be getting the player that they've been linked with for a few years now, and Eddie might well be getting that move. At the time of recording the video that you're watching, of course everything else in here is still very relevant a few hours on, but this Eddie Nketiah news had aged, so I thought I had to add a little update to it. But what's really interesting is that I didn't know if we were going to get the kind of deal that Forest are willing to put forward, whether we were looking at something like a loan with an option or an obligation of around 25 million. But it looks like we're going to get near that money that Forest are willing to pay, and Eddie is far more happy to do this deal. Is it because he's living in London? I don't know. If it's because he could have his reasons. Quite frankly, I don't care. I think it's really good news for Arsenal. That we're able to move this player on, and now everything I'm saying about the other wide players, wingers, forwards that we're linked with, I only stick by more. Like, we have to do this business. We have to go get forward. I'm happy for Eddie. He's getting the move he wants. I'm happy for Edu and Arsenal that they're getting the money that they feel they deserve for Eddie Nketiah. And I'm happy for Arsenal more so that we have now the opportunity with a little bit more funds to go and hopefully do something big in this market. Let's hope we do. Now on to Aaron Ramsdale and the latest with him.
Now, where are we with others? I mean, Aaron Ramsdale is a case of, Southampton have been mentioned, Bournemouth have been mentioned. I think Bilo might be going to, Justin Bilo, the final keeper, might be going to, was he final or PSV? I keep confusing the two, apologies. Max, if you're watching this video, let me know in the comments below. But what the Dutch goalkeeper might be ending up at Southampton. Wolves are interested, but they still got Jose Sarr. So I don't really know what's going to go on with Ramsdale. I feel like it might be a loan that feels slightly underwhelming as he leaves, and maybe Johan Garcia comes in. In terms of other players, again, it's just a case of Nketiah, Ramsdale, maybe Reece Nelson leaving. Those are the players we're looking at this week. And then hopefully a goalkeeper to replace Ramsdale and a forward. And then I think our squad's in a really good place. Now, before I just touch on the window and kind of, just sort of rounding all off and why I think it's such a massive week, I do want to just touch on the forwards we do have, and Leandro Trossard being one of them. Again, as we enter this week and everyone's going to be really kind of hyper about the transfer window, I will be too. I'm not belittling anyone who will be. That will absolutely be me this week. I do think it's important to remember that we got a really good win against Aston Villa and that we were brilliant. Leandro Trossard scored in another massive game for Arsenal, and as you can see from his numbers here, this is just what he does. His big games for Arsenal and Brighton since arriving in England, playing his football in England, involved 2 goals against Liverpool at home and 4 away. So he scored 4 times at Anfield, including that famous hat-trick we all know. He scored 3 times against Chelsea at home, 1 at Stamford Bridge, and as you can see as you make your way down, he has scored home and away against every single one of the big 6, except for Arsenal, who he now plays for. So there you go, you know where his loyalty's like. But That's such an impressive set of stats and numbers. This is a big game player who scored, the equaliser against Bayern Munich we desperately needed, who scored the goal that took us to penalties against Porto again when we were behind, and scored against Aston Villa to put us 1-0 up as well. He scores big goals, he scores clutch goals, he scores opening goals, he scores match-winning goals. He is just such a big player for us. And yes, I do want to go and add in the forward line, but it's not to take away from Leandro Trossard or a Bukayo Saka or a Martinelli, who could be huge for us too. It's just to help us, help them, and then give us other options as well. Now, Trossard, well done on a massive performance again against Villa, came off the bench, was superb. I've mentioned some of the players who've been linked with. There might be others like Rafinha, who you might mention, Raheem Sterling on loan. And again, at this point, just repeating myself, we know the targets are out there. And at the risk of repeating myself again, I just want to stress one more time that I do feel this is a massive, massive opportunity for Arsenal. With 5 days to go, it's a huge week, and it's a chance to go and add that little bit more extra firepower that's got to have something unique we don't have. Can you add blistering pace on the wing? Martinelli is very quick, but can you add that lightning pace that terrifies teams, that gives us a transition threat that we don't really have on the counter-attack? Can you get that moments player? Can you get that player like Emirates who's going to put it in the top corner from 25 yards out of nothing when we're not playing well? Can you get that target man striker who's going to win you a game with 20 minutes to go? Or that poacher that just always pops up with a goal even if they're having a 4 out of 10 performance? Can you add something that is different to what we've got, which is at the moment incredibly functional, incredibly fluid and brilliant? But we need that difference, we need that unpredictability. City have gone and brought in Gundogan, they've strengthened. They've added in Savinho, they have strengthened. So what can we add that is almost our trump card, that's our counter? Well done, you've added him, we've added him, now let's go punch for punch again between now and the end of the season. Maybe Liverpool will be a part of that, who've been brilliant too. But I just wanted to get that out there. It's a massive week, not because if we don't do business, well then the season's over and you may as well pack it all up. It's not that. It's not a case of we don't add anyone, then my belief sort of completely sats for the season. But if we add someone, I just start to see us as favourites. Of course, it depends who that someone is, but Arteta wouldn't get anyone in that he doesn't trust and believe in. If we add that forward, if we get that signing Arteta wants, then it's full steam ahead for the season. I'll be extremely excited for it. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the like button if you did enjoy this video. And leave a comment. I'd love to know your thoughts on all this, who you think we might add and what your thoughts are for what's left of the window. Show some love for Leandro Trossard in the comments. And of course, if you missed my match report, go check that out as well. That is out on the channel. If you want to revisit what happened against Villa, if you want a sort of more in-depth update on the Eddie Nketiah saga, I did a live stream, so go check that out too. Big thanks. Catch you all soon.